Welcome back to another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business with me, Jason Dukes. Thank you so much for being on for all the episodes that we have had so far. We really appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten and all the things that you've learned and told us about and given us the feedback. Today's show is in the same vein. Many of the guests that we've had on, prior are some of the people who, set the stage for motorsports. And today we're actually going to be talking with someone who's only 31 years old. But it's a little bit of a confusing thing because you talk to this guest and it's like, man, you start going through his stuff and it's like, well, he's got 31 years of experience almost, but he's only 31 years of age. The person that I'm talking about, the guest for today, is Tyler Crossnoe, currently series director for PDRA, currently general manager at Virginia Motorsports Park, but has a varied background as a racer, working at Memphis Motorsports Park, and then eventually getting to where he is today at a young 31 years of age. Has been called a bunch of things. One of the busiest men in motorsports, is a great promoter, producer, operator, marketer, racer, all the things, track prep guy, like all the different things. So want to bring on our guest for today, Tyler Crossnoe.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me on, buddy.
Of course, man. Thank you for being here. How you doing today?
Man, we're hanging in there. Another day of racetrack life. Some days the wheel turns this way and some days it turns that way, but it's racetrack life.
Well, it's actually funny. Some days the wheels turn this way, some days the wheels turn that way, but yet we're in the business of drag racing, which is straight line. So it's
exactly.
Tell us a little bit about where you are today, like all the different titles you hold, some of the things you're doing today, and then we'll go back and start from the beginning.
Yeah. So current life, living in Virginia, vice president of Virginia Motorsports Park, and series director of the Professional Drag Racers Association, coming off of our 6th race of the year at Darlington Dragway, and getting ready for our last 2 races of the year for the 10th anniversary season of PDRA. So it is wide open, as you can imagine, around this place right now. But man, we've had a great year. Of course, in any outside exterior sport, weather does play the fold sometimes, but at the same time, we've overcome a lot of obstacles this season. Been able to get all of our events in so far, and on the PDRA side, it's been a barn burner of a year as far as on track racing, car counts. I mean, it's been one of the best years PDRA's ever had as far as support, fan turnout, everything in between. And at VMP, it's status quo as always. We always have a high expectation of what we expect of ourselves, as well as our racers and our fans that expect the shows that we put on to be as successful as they are and be as good of a value as they can for the people that come out. So good year so far. It is late September, early October. So, I mean, we're working on trying to doctor everything up and get the season wrapped up. We've got a lot of big events finishing up on the season, and looking forward to 2024 on both sides.
Gotcha. So 31 years of age. I'm almost waiting for you to take the mask off and be like, I'm 62. Gotcha.
I feel it if it makes it feel any better. I had a couple of basketball injuries whenever I played ball back in middle school and high school, and I tell everybody now, I'm like, yeah, my knees are like my actual age. They feel like they're about 52, and I said, but I just carry them around in a 31-year-old body.
There it is. Well, take us to the beginning of this whole thing. Like, you came along a little bit after my drag racing, like track days and stuff like that. But during most of that time, I've been working with Wes, so your name always came up in multiple different ways. Because this is a business podcast, and a lot of people are listening specifically for business advice or business challenges, stuff like that. Like, tell us about yourself. Tell us about the start. Like, how did you get to the racetrack? How did you realize that this was going to be a profession of yours? And sounds like your knees probably.
Yeah, what's going on? No, it's kind of funny. I mean, I started out as I was born into a racing family. My dad was a local bracket racer, and we just kind of bracket raced around the home. I mean, he had a full-time job, never really traveled. He Saturday night bracket racing. He had a good time. He enjoyed it. We all went to the racetrack as a group and friends and family, and it's kind of where I started. I started driving at 15. He was ready to step out of the seat. I was kind of ready to move in. And so I started racing. And at 16, we went out and I think we heard a motor or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we were going to be down for 6-8 months to, just kind of recoup and rebuild the car and all that. And I told my mom, my dad, I was like, I'm going to go over to just hang out at the racetrack. I missed going because it was like you went every Saturday night. And so I went over to the racetrack one night and I was just hanging out and nobody was announcing. And the little old guy that owned the racetrack was like, "Hey man, you want to come up and announce?" I'm like, "Sure." I mean, I can talk racing. It's easy. and it's exactly how it started. And within a month, I was running the computer system, announcing, and just kind of ran the tower there. And it was a small track in Jackson, Tennessee. And I kind of worked there for probably 6-8 months and got the car back together, started racing again. And then I realized, well, dang, it was nice to have your own money. Didn't have to go ask mom and dad, hey, can I get a 20 to go to Sonic after practice and stuff like that. So I ended up just kind of, I'm not going to say I put racing on a back burner, but I would go work over at Jackson a little bit. And then I started working for Holly Springs Motorsports in Mississippi whenever I went to college. Was taking college courses online, working there on the weekends, some days during the week, stuff like that. With a good friend of mine, Jabbo, who has since passed away. But, I learned a lot from him on the track prep side. He had been running the racetrack there. That was kind of where I learned the track prep art. Kind of got my feet wet there. We did some promotional stuff there with some small tire races and stuff like that. So I would say my time at Holly Springs was really a big learning curve for me. People look at the glorious side of things, but that's also where you learn to ride a zero-turn lawnmower because you got to cut the grass and you got to make sure everything's cleaned up at the racetrack. Yeah. But, I left there, kind of started doing some things on my own. That's kind of where my career kind of took off. We started promoting the Outlaw Streetcar Union at Memphis. That was 2012, if I remember correctly, 2011, 2012 in that time frame.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 19.
So
I graduated
19 and in college and already producing events.
Yeah. I was 19, 20 years old at that point.
And note, like I'm some of this stuff I'm gonna have to slow down and reiterate it. Like you lived it, so it's not that big of a thing for you. But I hope you do get that, like being 19 years old and like producing, major events at major drag strips, like that's a little bit of an anomaly. You know that, right?
Oh, for sure. And it's, I tell people all the time, I'm not the spotlight guy. I'm not I like the, hey, look, just let me get back in my corner. I'll put on a good show. I'm the guy that lets the work do the talking. And I've always been that way. I mean, Donald Long and I used to kind of go at each other and have fun and crack jokes and stuff like that. But when it got down to it, I was never the smack talk guy. I was always just kind of, hey, look, I'm going to let my job and my work and my team do the talking. And if you think you can go out and do a better event than us, then that's good. I mean, I hope you can, but we're going to set the bar pretty high. Mm-hmm. And for years, we put on that race at Memphis, working with Paul Cartwright there, Pam Kendrick, that entire team. And
good people.
And it's kind of funny. Like I ended up doing 2 stints at Memphis as track manager and worked under Paul. Fast forward 10 years, Paul works for me at PDRA now. It's the greatest thing ever. Somebody will walk into race control or something and have a question or be mad or something like that. And Paul will look at me and go, your turn. Like I dealt with this when you were number 2 in the seat. He goes, now your turn. So you get to handle this guy. But we have a good time of looking back at all those times. And Gavin Carter also works for me at PDRA. And he was, he lived in Munford right up the road. And, he got his first job was working for Paul and I at Memphis. So it's kind of cool that like we've all kind of through the years, we've all stayed together and stayed really close. And to see all the groups and the people that we've dealt with for those years, our first OSCR race in Memphis, John Sears was hot and heavy in X275. And, came in to do tech for us and all this stuff. And, you kind of think, oh, it's cool and blah, blah, blah. Well, John's now my tech director at PDRA.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've said it for years, and I've really said it here lately, but this entire sport is so relationship based. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the, hey, what can you do for me now program. I have relationships that I made when I was 18, 19 years old that, you may see those people 2 to 3 times a year now, but they are some of my best friends. Right. And people that you see every day, you're just like, no, they're, hey, whatever, and it's nothing against it.
Right.
But
right.
It amazes me every day that how tight knit our sport is. When it comes down to the relationships, I mean, you spoke on Wes, and, living in Virginia, not getting to travel as much as I used to and stuff like that. You normally don't get to see people as much as you would like. But I know right now if I pick the phone up, Wes is going to answer and be like, hey, what's up? Like,
right.
Is something going on, or do we just hanging out or what? But but this sport is such a good group to be in, and people look at it and say, oh, it's got to be the greatest job in the world. It's sugar coated. Trust me. I mean, every job is a job. Let's be honest here. There's good days and there's bad days. But to sit back at the end of the day and to sit here and say, hey, you're sitting here with a multi-million-dollar 500-acre facility and a growing racing series that can rival just about anything that you put up against it right now. It's a blessed seat to be in, 100%. I know a lot. I know I'm not the big-headed brag kind of guy, but I know it's something that other people probably look at and go, man, I wish I had that spot, or I wish I was in that seat or something like that. But I will say this, it's a awesome program, and I enjoy it every day, but don't ever look above your means either, because I never thought I was going to be here myself. Growing up, I was pretty safe. I had thought I was good, and we spoke on Memphis, and for a long time I thought, hey, this is going to be my spot. Paul was getting older, and I knew he was looking at retiring, and I was working under him at 21 years old, and my dad got sick with cancer and ended up passing away. But at that point, kind of made me take a step back in my life. I ended up leaving Memphis, finished that year out, raced his car. End of the year, guy came up, wanted to buy the car, and I sold it. And it was like, I don't regret it by no means. But we sit back now and it's like, what would have happened if I'd have never left Memphis? You question, hey, what would have happened if I'd have never left there? Would you have stayed until the sale of the company? And, how does the whole thing look? But after that, I went out on my own doing kind of consulting work, track prep. That's where that traveling life kind of took over. And for 5 years, I was all across the world and went to Australia twice, been to Kuwait, been to Malta in Europe and Brazil, just all over the place. And it's all from drag racing. Mm-hmm. Nothing more than, hey, you're good at a trade. I need you to come over and help this guy learn this. We need to be able to perform this kind of track prep, or need help with this timing system or anything like that. And just being in the right place at the right time and having the right relationships to be able for people to say, hey, this is your guy. Right. I can say right now, 2 of the 4 would have never happened without Eric Dillard from Proline Racing. And it was Eric saying, well, I got your guy right here. And within 14 days, I'm on a plane. Right. But some of the best times in my life was not really knowing what the future holds. And, now I look at that and go, God, you were stupid. You didn't know where your next meal was coming from.
You got on a plane and went where without knowing it? Yeah.
I'll tell the Malta story real quick. It was, I look down at my Facebook Messenger and I get a message on Facebook. I'm like, man, what's this? And it's a guy from the island of Malta. And he said, hey, we need your help for track prep on a racetrack. I'm like, what?
Right.
Just
Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm a 25-year-old kid from Tennessee. Like, I don't know if I'm your guy here. And within 3 days, I had a plane ticket. And I was on a plane to Malta. Wildest trip I've ever had.
Couldn't point to it on a map, I'm sure, but you're on
Couldn't.
a.
Looked it up. Was like, where am I even going? Off the boot of Italy.
Oh, I
And
didn't even know that. Okay.
yep, it's right off of Italy. So of course I'm an Italian food guy. So I'm like, if anything, you can say you've been close enough to Italy to get most of their food. But went over there and it was a wild deal. Like this racetrack had been sitting for years and they were trying to revive it and stuff like that. The concrete was like 40 years old. It needed to start over. It was so weather beaten. It was an old facility. And I felt horrible. Like I was like, this guy just flew me over here in 3 days and paid me a pretty decent amount of money. And I'm like, I just walked in a day and was like, hey man, there's nothing you can do but dig it up and start over.
Mhm.
Coolest guy ever. Got back on the plane, came home. I actually went to Donald Long's race and helped my best friend Daniel Ferris, and he was finishing up his deal or the race series for the weekend. And we were packing up the truck and we were about to get on the road and phone rings. Wonder what these guys are doing. It was the guys from Malta. And I'm like, I wonder what this is. And I looked down, they were tearing the racetrack apart. And I looked at Daniel and I'm like, oh Lord. It's like, I hope I just didn't tell these guys wrong. Within 14 days, they had poured new concrete. And a month later, they had a big national event and set the top fuel record for their facility. So it was extremely cool. But it was a trip where I was like, I felt terrible. Like I flat out felt terrible. And soon after that was when Tommy and I began talks of me moving to Virginia. I was actually working for PDRA during that time, but still traveling on the road. And so we kind of meshed in the VMP life, and I packed up my bags and said, I'm going to stop living out of Holiday Inns and I'm going to find me a home here in Virginia. And that's where I've been since. And we're finishing up year 5, and it's been a good ride for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So like I started off in preface during the introduction, like about 31 years of experience, but only 31 years old.
Exactly.
So let's go all the way. Let's go all the way back of just like tell us about some of the. I mean, this is going to be a lot of like lessons learned / advice to give, because as you said, you have there's people listening who are younger than you. There are people listening to this program that's older than you. And a lot of these people either want to be in the seat that you're in, or they are in a seat like yours somewhere else, and they're listening to this for advice. So let's just start all the way in the beginning, like before even getting into the business side of the sport, like, and no, being a bracket racer and being in a bracket racing family is sort of the business of it. But where did you think you were going to end up in life? Like, what did you think you were going to end up doing as a career?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I had no clue. I was the guy I was playing sports, really kind of, never was a star athlete, never, none of that, but just enjoyed being a part of a team and enjoyed the sport of racing. I always just thought it would be a hobby. Never once in my life at 16 or 17 thought, hey, this is where I'm going to set my grounds and I'm going to be a motorsports guy. It was just never really a thought of that. I just always thought of racing as a hobby, never thought of it as a business. When the door began to open to kind of play around in the racing side of thing and the business side, I quickly realized that there was a lot of doors that could be opened rather quickly, to the point of just putting forth effort. As bad as that sounds, putting forth effort, having pride in your work, that seemed to go a really long way.
Just so you know, one of not necessarily the purposes of this show, but one of the purposes of this show is almost to be like the anti of all the other shows, where a lot of shows are like, look, be pretty, dress up, and do their thing, and it's like, what about like effort?
Yeah, just grind it out. Like, and it's as weird as it sounds, it's like, the ugliest job at the racetrack, scraping the racetrack. Let's just be honest here. It's the most terrible, back-breaking job on planet Earth, but somebody's got to do it. And, people look at it and they go, oh, I don't want to go scrape the racetrack this week. Well, that's the most important job to having a good racing surface. And a lot of people just say, "Oh, we're not going to do it, or we're going to rush through it, or whatever." Well, then they're wondering why the racetrack's not as good. So, the grunt work jobs and the I don't want to pick the trash up, and I'm
Clean the
above that
bathrooms.
kind of
Yeah.
jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where I kind of started, was kind of in the trenches, and I have a really, really, really bad program of, yes, I may sit in the seat now and be the one calling the shots, but I'm the very one that will get in the trenches and would rather be there at most days. I'm being the one that says this. I'll do that because it's safe, and it's like I know what I have to do. There's no questions. There's no, the
Right.
job is cut and dry. You know what you got to do. And as humans, I mean, let's be honest, we all sit there and go, "Hey, that's an easy. I know what the job is. I can check that box. It's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I can check that box, move on with life." A lot of times I need to get uncomfortable. Tommy and I talk about that all the time. He puts pressure on me to, hey, delegate that job off to somebody else. He goes, we've bought plenty of equipment here to make my life easier over the years of being here. But he's like, hey, anybody can drive a 0-turn lawnmower that can scrape that racetrack, or a Bobcat that can scrape the racetrack. You need to be figuring out how to make this event. You need to buy the radio package. You need to buy the TV package. And
Right.
nothing against it. And I enjoy that part. It's now become a new challenge. But it's like, man, that's mine. Like, don't take it away. And I've gotten better at it. The hardest part is trusting other people to do it in the way that you would want things to be done.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you sit back at the end of the day and you're like, it could have been better. But if you don't let those people go and do the job and mess up, they're never going to learn.
Right.
I was lucky enough to learn the mistakes at 18 years old. I'm supposed to screw up at 18.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supposed to know anything at 18 years old. I'm the youngest guy at the racetrack by 20 years. I'm not supposed to know anything.
Right.
So if I made a mistake, it was very easy to go, hey, Tyler's learning, blah, blah, blah. So I think those guys that gave me those opportunities, because they're the reason why I'm in the seats where I am now. Now I find myself doing it with Gavin. Gavin's younger than I am. And we work together very well. And we just did it at Darlington a couple days ago. But, there were times where I'm like, hey, let's go do this on the racetrack. And he would go, I think we should try this. I'm like, have at it.
Right.
Like, let's go. Like, let's do it. And it's stuff that, in my mind, you sit there and you go, okay, I've done this before a million times. We've struggled, it's worked or it hasn't. But every racetrack's different. So let's try it and see. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But we learned quickly that the process that he was thinking was going to be successful was actually just causing a lot more work for him. And nothing against it, because it's like, hey, but you go a couple weeks to Galot, it'll probably work.
Right.
And
right.
So you have to try all these trial and effort deals that we've learned over the years of, hey, if you run into this situation, these are your options to get out of trouble. And we just have to see which one works the best for each individual racing surface and the weather conditions we're given and stuff like that. But, the learning from mistakes, the being able to get down in the grind and just be okay with, hey, the not so glamorous job, I guess you would say. We joke around all the time saying how people are, photographers took a picture of us scraping the racetrack. People must think that's cool. No, it is not.
Yeah, not cool. Yeah,
but it's a fun deal. So
yeah. So tell us a little bit about, like you said that, I mean, and it's fact that you were producing events at the age of 21. What's some of the advice and some of the things that you learned doing it that quickly? And also, how did it even come about? Like, was there just like glaring opportunity that you could see as a 21-year-old that the rest of the market couldn't see, or was your, I don't use the word like naive or naivety or whatever the word is like a bad thing. I mean, sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like was it only an opportunity that a 21-year-old could see?
No, it wasn't. At the start of my career deal there, small tire racing was hot and heavy. Donald Long's events were growing. My dad and I went down to his second event in Georgia, I think. It was just starting to take hold of being a standalone event. It years at Orlando and all those events, you know, it was there were classes, but they weren't the standalone show. So we went down, realized, hey, this is pretty exciting. This has a chance to blow up. And we were like, why can't we do this where we live? You know, we went and looked at the qualifying sheets, and there's guys from Tennessee, guys from Mississippi, guys from Alabama, and we're like I was working at Holly Springs at the time, and I'm like, we're right in the middle of all these people. So we came home and ended up putting on 2 events at Holly Springs through the racetrack, and we just built 2 events. Hey, we're going to do this. They were kind of mine and Jabo's back and forth. We kind of worked together on them, and like at the end of the day, we were like, this has got traction. Like this has teeth. And within a year, I was involved in the first year's 2 events. I left after the second one and then went out on my own. Mainly because we had kind of in a race or 2 races had outgrown Holly Springs. And I was like, you can't, like you can only do so much. And with those events, you know, the purses are not paying for themselves. As in a bracket race would and stuff like that. So you've got to have a facility that can control big car counts to be able to offset and have the amenities for fans to say, hey, I want to go to that racetrack because I'm going to watch a really good show. So we moved to Memphis, did a 1-day event in, I want to say 2011 or 2012, to kind of see, hey, how is this going to work at Memphis? Memphis had never hosted a small tire event in the reopening phase after the Memphis Motorsports Park years. So we were the first small tire deal at Memphis International Raceway. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. You know, I'd never radio prepped there and all this. We came out the first race. Mark Mickey went 428 and the world turned. And, 428 now is like, cool. Might get you qualified to 675. But back then it was like that was the fastest thing on radials at the time. And it was at that moment I was like, okay, the 1-day program did what it was supposed to do. We proved the racetracks fast. And for the racers at that point, your whole deal was, hey, look, we're going to run big numbers. I mean, it's fun to go win a race, but the radial stuff at that time was so, I'm not going to say it was lost in running big numbers, but it was so new that you had to give them the opportunity to go fast because that's what everybody was intrigued on. And we went in the next year, and that was when Mark Samples and myself teamed up to do the Outlaw Streetcar Reunion. Mark and I stayed together for about 4 years. But that was really when that peak of, okay, we need to build this event. This is something that, okay, there's not a lot of small tire races in our area. Even within like a 6-7 hour circle, there's nothing there on a grand scale. There were smaller monthly programs and stuff like that, but on a big event scale, there was nothing there. So we just took a chance and said, hey, let's try it. And first year, I think we were like 180 cars, solid event, nothing, good first year 3-day race. We're like, all right, we've kind of set our feet. Let's see what happens. Go into our second year and really kind of put all our eggs in one basket. I became friends with some of the guys from Street Outlaws through some traction compound stuff. And two of their bigger stars put radials on and came and raced with us. Well, that year is really what kind of created the whole deal. We had questionable weather. It rained Thursday, if I remember correctly. Friday was kind of iffy. Saturday, we got up Saturday morning. It was 52 degrees and it was sleeting and snowing. And we were trucking race cars down the racetrack. And it kind of became this whole, like, we're racing in the snow. Like, it was wild. It was the craziest race I've ever been to. We had Radio versus the World under the tower. Jason Mahalik was driving for Kyle Hutel, Bad Niner, Billy Stockman was tuning and all that. And it starts snowing. I mean, as racetrack was white snowing. I got in the tractor and I was like, all right, I got to get away. I'm stressed. I got to get away. Got in a tractor. I was at the quarter-mile mark, brooming snow off of a racetrack, crying my eyes out at 22, 23 years old, thinking the world is going to end. I'm at the quarter-mile mark. I look to my left in the spectator parking lot, and there is a line all the way out the door, all the way down the road. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, you got to man up and make this thing happen. People are still coming in. Right. And we got it all cleaned up. We got back, got all the snow off the racetrack, dried it up, and kind of hopped off the tractor. For some reason, I never really do this. I hopped off the tractor and I walked up to the racetrack, and something told me, I was like, you need to spray it. Sprayed it, drug it one more time. Mahalik comes up 3 pairs later, goes 397, second car to the threes. And it coined that race, a t-shirt. We made a t-shirt out of it. It was called Threes in the Freeze. And from then on out, that race kind of set my career. Always kind of had the mantra of, hey, they'll do whatever it takes to get a race in. You know, they don't give up, you know, regardless of what the weather hits or anything like that. One thing about that team is they would never give up. And that's kind of how, I'm not going to say that's how it all started, but that kind of created a spiraling effect of, you know, we always made sure we got races in. If we couldn't, I mean, we had to be completely washed out if we didn't finish a race. And I mean, that took racetracks working with us. That took the team that we've built over those years to do that. And, you know, that was years that I look back on now. And, you know, in the time you're like, man, this is a stressful week. And, you know, you spend a week at the racetrack for hoping 2 days of good weather and fans come and all that. Because those events are so lopsided purse wise that you have to have fans come in. Case in point, look at the $1 Million Drag Race. There was probably 14 people there. But their business side works out different because of entry fees and buybacks. So, you know, it really was a time where, you know, you enjoyed learning. I learned a lot through those days. Learned a lot of getting involved with the city and the county and the tourism departments and all that. And now you look back at it and it's like, it's just second nature now. But I had to learn that, you know, and everybody kind of gets, this day and age, everybody gets to a point where they're like, I don't know it and I don't know it right now, so I'm not going to do it. And that's not the way to be. And I can definitely attest to the side of, you know, getting down in the trenches and getting in the dirt and just saying, hey, I got to figure this out. And, you know, people say it all the time, and I've heard it on motivational speeches and podcasts and everything else. Don't get mad at the guy that's good at something that's been doing it for 15 years when you just started 3 years ago. You're going to be just as good if you'll stick with it. And, you know, that's the biggest thing that I see is people get frustrated that, man, I'm not as good at this, or I haven't figured this out, or how did they know to do that, or anything like that. And it's all experience, and it's all in learning from your mistakes and just figuring out over time, hey, this is the best aspect to go. Where when you're new at all that stuff, you just don't think about it. I never once thought of going to a tourism department when I was in Memphis. First race when I was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, the tourism department called me and said, hey, how can we help you do this? And a light bulb went off. And it's like, I sat there and I was like, I had Beale Street, I had Bass Pro, I had the Memphis Grizzlies, I had the Redbirds. Like, I had a huge market that I never touched because I never made a phone call to a tourism department. And, you know, we ended up moving that event to Bowling Green for a couple of years before it ceased. But, you know, those years at Bowling Green were the best ones we ever had. And it's, you know, we would go into restaurants wearing our shirts or whatever, and people would go, oh, y'all are the race this weekend. Never once heard that in Memphis.
Right.
And it's like, you know, not that we didn't advertise on the radio, advertise on TV, and we did all that. But tourism department dollars and knowing how to talk to people that know, that's their job. That's what they're good at. I tell people all the time, I'm good at running a race. Give me a time I have to be done by, I can make that happen. I'm good at prepping a racetrack. I have guys on my team that are good at parking, that are good at tech, that are good at making, hey, look, you got 15 minutes to pick up. We had an oil down. You need to find that time. I have guys that can find that time. Mm-hmm. And it's knowing that, okay, that's not a strength of mine. I need to find someone that's strong in that. And that's how we've really built a team at PDRA and even at VMP, to be able to say, hey, these people are good at what they can do. You let those people go and do their thing. Because
where did that come from at such a young age? Like knowing all the important pieces and having such a multi-dimensional, like just having such a multi-dimensional perspective. Because I mean, this is a little bit of bias of me, right? Like I ran a racetrack and I had like the 16-year-old smart kid from a bracket racing family, but their head worked like a bracket racing family, right? Like they'd be like, all right, I'd be like, look, come work for me, propose some stuff, like let's do it. Yeah. And I would look at their proposal and it would just be like, oh, not everything is not the finances of everything doesn't work like a bracket race. Like
exactly.
And well, like where did you, because a lot of people get that, right? Like I've seen track prep people that are like, you know what? Nope, we just we prep a good track so everyone's gonna come. And it's like, nah, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. Or people who are like, well, I can put on a good concert so people are gonna, racers are gonna come and it's like, no, it's like you gotta have all of it. Like where did you, because it seems like you had that from a young age, like you talked about it. At the age 21, you were thinking about like, well, we need to move this thing to Memphis because we need to have amenities for the fans to want to come out. Like that's a super mature thing to say or to be thinking about as a 21-year-old. Like where'd that come from?
I will say I've probably got two of the best parents in the world. My dad was a really hardworking guy, grind out, got in the trenches, not a glorious job, but went to work every day, put food on the table, made a good living. Taught me a lot about, hey, look, you got to go to work. At 15 years old, it was, hey, you need to figure out who can hire you at 15. You need to go get a summer job. Huh, dude, I'm 15. Like, play basketball. Like, I want to, I want to have a good time in summer. And, for a long time, I'm not going to say I hated it, but it was like, man, I just want to be a kid. But now I look at it and I'm like, that was the greatest lesson he ever taught me. He would never let me have a debit card. He was teaching me how to build credit. And my mom, I'll speak on her. She is, to this day right now, she just started her 38th year in the school district. As a school teacher, librarian, assistant principal. She's done everything from wash the floors and clean the kitchen to assistant principal, in this elementary school. She started when she was 21. She has got a very, very good mind. My dad did as well. But my mom is very, very book smart, very, very common sense smart. I can say I was blessed with both. My dad was very good with numbers. My mom was not. My mom could teach you how to read and teach you how to do all that. But I was able to kind of get the best of both worlds from my parents. But really the whole team aspect and all that came from playing sports. Growing up at the racetrack was great. You learn the racetrack life through that. But playing sports, playing football growing up, playing basketball growing up, playing basketball through high school, I had a really good coach who really understood the fact of, hey, look, everybody has a thing that they're good at. The thing that I was good at was shooting 3-pointers and shooting free throws. I was really good at that. Couldn't play defense, couldn't jump. I was slow, couldn't defend, but I could hit a 3-pointer and I could hit a free throw. So it was, but there were time and situations in a game where I needed to get on the floor. Right. I need a 3. Where's my boy? Boop. And, right. We had guys we had a point guard that was incredible, talented. Had a center that was tall, power forward that was awesome. And, when you sat back and looked at it all, you're like, we had a team that could go really far and always was plagued by an injury, whether it was on the football field that carried into basketball or something. because we had a lot of two-way athletes. But he taught us a lot on the fact of being able to build a team and understanding everyone's strengths. That's one thing that I did learn from him, Coach Jared Shelton at Crockett County High School. And he's now, I think he's principal or something at the high school now. So it's cool to see, look back and see they're still involved and still doing good things. But the things that I learned going through sports was teamwork, seeing everybody's strengths, and you knew that on the floor. I mean, I can remember being on a fast break and, hey, that guy can't hit a three, but he can slam dunk this thing, so you better be ready. Right. So you just knew, and it taught me how to think quick and be able to move and adjust. And taking that into the motorsports and the racing world, you see where everybody's comfortable. I spoke on that earlier about how I'll find myself leaving the office and sliding back to the racetrack. Like, this is easy for me. Like, I'm going over here. But, I have people that work here at the racetrack, and one of them is probably one of the best gate leaders I've ever seen. As far as knowing the technology, knowing the way the process works, cashing people out, all of that. It's probably one of the best I've ever seen. But you put her in a different aspect, and she is a nervous wreck. And it's like, you just don't. You have to learn to be a leader and see that and go, don't set your people up for failure.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that I've seen is, as long as you can learn and know your personnel, see where people are strong, see where people are weak. Don't put them in a situation where they feel nervous. Number one, they're not going to do as good of a job just because they're going to be timid and nervous. And then they're going to second guess everything that they do. So it's really, that's what I've learned is watching people. I've got a kid that we hired here at Virginia. I think we hired him the first year I was here. He's been here at least 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Started in the water box, and I was like, all right, if he gets through this, you've run a racetrack. Let's be honest. Water box, if you can run through that, you're okay. You're going to stick through here. And, as he learned it, he got really good. I'm like, all right, he's learned how the racing works. He learns how things move. I was like, man, I'm going to try him in different places. Hey, you need to learn different spots. And he learns them. But to this day, the kid will not get out of the water box.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, bro, we got to get you in a better spot. Like, you've been here for 4 or 5 years. Like this, you need to move up. But his thing is, it's comfortable. He knows what his job is, and he's good at it.
Yeah.
So when he comes into work every day, he knows what his job is. He knows what he has to do, and that's fine with him. But I also know if we were in trouble and, hey, we need a starter or a staging lane guy, he can move right into the spot and be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to be nervous. And you can see it on his face. You can see it in his attitude, stuff like that. But I say that all the time about how, there's people that will attract to certain jobs and attract to certain positions. Sometimes because they're easy. Let's be honest. Sure. There's some people that will look at things and go, that's an easy job. I want that. Water box is not an easy job. So that's the last place I want to be. But it's cool for me to sit back and go, it's awesome to see people take pride in those jobs. I watch him at the end of every night. He'll clean every rock, he'll clean all of his area out every night.
Yeah.
And, it's cool to sit back and go, you've seen that kid grow over 4 or 5 years into a solid young adult employee that is relied upon every weekend. And to see people grow into those roles and welcome them in and say, that's mine. Right. Anything that you can be accountable for and you can say, that's mine, you're going to do a better job at 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. For the sake of just constructive criticism to the industry, what are some of the things that you see people doing where you sort of get the face palm emoji or just wish that they would do it a little bit different? Again, don't have to use names or whatever. Like, this is it's a business podcast to help make everybody better. Like, what are some of those things that you see? Yeah,
for sure. One thing, the prime thing that always stands out to me is scheduling. It's very easy to pick up the phone and say, hey, what's your schedule look like? I mean, we're kind of in the middle of 3 or 4 different racetracks. Maryland International Raceway is an hour and a half up the road. Galot Motorsports Park's 2 hours away. Smaller track called Roxborough's not far away. You know, we'll shoot emails, text messages, phone calls. Hey, what's your schedule look like? What's your schedule look like? Where are you at with scheduling? Blah, blah, blah. And we try to work with each other to not schedule ET points races, big races, shows, anything like that. We try to work together on scheduling. But I sit back and watch these people schedule big money bracket races on top of each other within a 4-hour circle, or grudge races on top of each other within a 2-hour circle. And at the end of the day, everybody has to make a choice and say, hey, well, I'm going to go to the one that has the best weather, or I'm going to go to the one that is closer to me, or I think the racetrack's better here, or, whatever it may be. I think the payout's better. And it all comes back to it being a relationship. You build a relationship with these racers, and you build a relationship with fans, other promoters, anything and everything that can be built as a relationship, it is. And the more conflict that you open the can to, as far as, oh man, I got to make a decision if I'm going to go support Tyler or whoever. Right. And when you make that choice have to be made, at some point somebody's going to feel like a friendship is lost. Right. Oh man, I thought we were boys. You're going to go over there. and I hear it all the time. And I hate it because I see it on group chats. I see it in racing message boards, anything like that. And you just sit there and go, wow, like we're cutting our nose off before we ever get the nose grown. And I've got a big nose, so I can make a nose joke. So I'm okay with that. But to sit back and you go, okay, drag racing is, we sit back and say, hey, motorsports is a huge business. It's booming. It's huge. It's not that big. The circle is not that big. And when we cut that circle up, even with the same people, when we start hacking up the piece of the pie and watch it start going away.
Right. And like you said, many times, not because people want to compete, but because they just didn't pick up the phone.
Because they don't pick up the phone. and it's, I'm the world's worst at times. I will pick, hey, shoot me a text message. And it's not that I don't want to talk to you, but it's because of the way that my whole life is circulated right now, that it's easier for me to look back on a message and not forget something. But it's just as easy as making forth the effort before putting your dates out.
Yeah.
And I've said for years, I've watched racetracks at home sit there and battle it out. Oh, we're having a bracket race this weekend. We're paying $1,000 to win. And the track 45 minutes away will go, we're going to have a bracket race this weekend and pay $1,200 to win. And I'm like, you're both idiots. Like, there's 50 cars within the same circle, and you're each going to have 25, and you're both going to lose money. Like, so being able to understand the ease of, hey, just pick the phone up, put forth a little bit of time behind the scenes, and be okay with not being in the limelight for a little bit of time, because at the end, it's going to work out better for everybody. Racers are going to get to race better races more. Promoters are going to be more successful. Racetracks are going to be more successful, which when racers race more, they're burning more tires, burning more racing fuel. Got to have a shock rebuilt. Got to get spark plugs. Got to have engine rebuild. And it keeps the entire business floating. The more good races that these racers can go to, and to be able to just keep the sport alive. I mean, let's be honest. We've all sat down and watched live feeds before, and you go, oh man, we'll check this other one, see what's going on over here. Or, we did it at Darlington not long ago. Every night when we'd get back to the hotel, we're pulling up the million. Hey, who's still in? Hey, who's still rolling? Oh, foot breakers won again. I'll be damned. But we never, a PDRA race never affected the million. But we sit there all the time and go, man, there's 2 big money races that are going on within 4 hours of themselves. Like, what are you guys doing?
Right.
And, and you see it. You see guys that will pick and choose, and I figured they would have been there, or wow, like I didn't see that coming. So that's really my I'm not gonna say it's my pet peeve, but that's kind of like my biggest thing is just open communication between series, between racetracks, promoters, everything else, just for the fact of being able to say, hey, at the end of the day, it is still a business. And if open communication for a couple of days before you put a schedule out helps your bottom line, thousands of dollars, is worth every minute of your time.
Right. Right. Well, what do you think about sometimes people have like made up stories of competition versus collaboration? Like I would get that at Gateway. Like I assumed a job at Gateway, and I get there, and I wouldn't believe like how many stories people had. Like people who had never met me, like had stories of me that like were not even
Nowhere near true.
like completely like it's like, dude, I just showed up. Like I didn't even like it couldn't even possibly be true. Like
Exactly.
how could I hate a race? I don't even know it exists yet. I'm still trying to figure out the layout of the land.
And
Like like
yep, and I've had the same thing. And I think honestly, I think some of that's like fear of new. You get used to a certain manager, there's certain ways, and racers fear, oh boy, where's this guy coming from? And my point, and I say it all the time, I hate the mantra of being a young adult in the sport. Just turned 31 a couple weeks ago, and I still have people, hey kid, how are you? Damn it, I'm not a kid no more. But I mean, you look at the sport we're in, it's an older sport. So for people my age, you do hear the mantra of being a young adult longer. But I heard that for a long time of, man, what's this kid going to change? Oh boy. Does he know what he's doing? Like, it's a big racetrack. I hope we're going to be all right.
right.
And that all really comes back to Tommy and Judy Franklin. They trusted me with the business. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you had to be a little bit nervous.
Oh, absolutely.
But to have the trust that they've had in me, I mean, we joke about it all the time that, they have their electrical business and their two businesses at home. And we joke all the time about, hey, you gonna come hang out at the racetrack, or you just kind of not gonna come this week or what? But they come down and race all the time with their bracket cars, or hit Tommy's Pro Mod and Amber's 632 car and Ashley's Junior and all that. But to be in the situation to where people put forth the effort and put forth the trust in you to be in that seat, it comes back to having to prove yourself. Let's be honest. Still to this day, I still hear stories of, hey, Tyler did this. Tyler didn't do that.
Wasn't me. I wasn't even.
Tyler didn't do that. Or hey, Tyler sent this message over to that guy and said they're scheduling this race here and they're doing this and blah blah blah. I'm like, don't even have that guy's phone number. But it's funny, like how you hear the he said she said circle of, and nobody means anything wrong of it,
right?
But as bad as you hate to say it, it's this day and age. People like to be, hey, I'm on the breaking news story of this.
I'm breaking
the story first. But we all have a good time with it, and at the end of the day, let's just be honest, it's the sport we all love, and it's a sport that has such a huge circle of people involved, and we see that when we go to SEMA and PRI and places like that. But we do still get lost in the fact of, motorsports, everybody on planet Earth is all in the motorsports game. And you're like, no, I have people that live 5 minutes down the road that don't even know where the racetrack is, and we make noise all the time.
Right.
So just, the business aspect of this place is so hard, and the business aspect of the series can become to get even harder because you're trying to talk to people, in different markets. I mean, we figured out a couple of markets that are really good. And then you go, man, why haven't we figured that one out yet? Oh, it's 9 hours away. No wonder. Because they don't know who Tyler and Tommy are, or Jay Cox or Jim Halsey or whoever. So it's not a knock on anything. It's just, you have to get that footprint set. And we're finishing up year 10. It's not like we've, you look at that and you go, man, 10 years is a long time. But when you look at it from a general motorsports or general car guy aspect, 10 years is not really that long.
Right.
So, we fight that all the time, but we're slowly learning that. That's probably something that we've learned the most in the racing side, is getting the word out to people. understanding the way to speak to a general fan. The kid that has the Honda that drives to high school every week or goes to college. How do you get that kid to come out to a PDRA race? How do you get that kid to come to a VMP race? We ask those questions all the time.
And then not feel stupid when they're there.
Yes. And really, we do a bad job of that. I'm not saying we, as in ourselves, but we as a sport do a bad job of that. I hear it all the time of, man, what's that little guy doing over there? That little guy over there is enjoying his first time at the racetrack. Chill out.
Right.
He doesn't know who you are. He doesn't know what a pro mod is. He doesn't know what a bracket car is. He doesn't know how a bracket race works, but he is probably here for the first time. Probably doesn't even know where the restrooms are.
Right. Well, and quickly make sure he knows where the restroom is, and quickly make sure that he can speak the stuff, because that poor dude doesn't want to look bad in front of his girlfriend.
Exactly, and I've seen it happen. And you go, you just lost that guy. He'll never come back. And it's not that anybody means bad on it. It's we get so lost in our heads in racing of everybody knows what we know. I have a really bad case of that, because I'll be in the middle of a race and be rattling off stats or something like that, and then go, how do you mean you don't know that? And then you go, oh yeah, not everybody cares. Right. And I find myself going, you can't get mad at somebody for that. You can't get mad at somebody for what they don't know. But what we're trying to do, like on the PDRA side, is do a better job of educating people of, hey, when we're running Pro Nitrous, they have hood scoops. They don't have a blower that comes out. When we run Pro Boost, it's a blower. And educating people of what our classes are, what the difference is. Because let's be honest, it's hard to differentiate at times what certain classes are.
Right.
And it's not a knock on chassis builders or people, car selection or anything like that. It's a knock on a series and a racetrack of not explaining to people in the stands of what a difference is. That's the glory of NHRA is top fuel and funny car. Real simple.
Yeah.
Top fuel, long, make a lot of noise. Funny car, body, make a lot of noise. Really easy. So to explain that to a general fan is super easy. Mm-hmm. But when you go to start explaining Pro Mod and, hey, there's nitrous power adder, a Pro Charger, a roots blower, a screw blower that looks the same as a roots blower, except to a common fan that's 90 feet away, and a turbo combination. Well, to us, we go, man, that's awesome. They got all of them running each other. To a guy that's coming to his first race, he's going, why does that one not look like that one? And why does all the top fuels look the same? Why is this so confusing? So that's one thing that we've said is a glaring spot in our sport, is to be able to not dumb it down, but generalize some of our wording, some of our announcers even. Make it to where a common person can understand what's going on and make that new fan feel welcomed at the racetrack, not feel turned off because they don't have the definitions or the vocabulary.
Right. Well, before we wind down with the last round, which is put up your dukes, can we just talk about 10-year plans for Virginia Motorsports Park, 10-year plans for PDRA, 10-year plans for Tyler Crossnoe?
Oh, damn.
And no, you don't have, I mean, as much or as little as you want to go.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Tommy's been involved with PDRA since the beginning. I'll start on the PDRA side. We'll start there first. Finishing up year 10, I mean, our goal is to continue to get better. We've been on the cusp of some couple of big conversations that have happened to be able to move our series to the next level. And we hope to be able to do that soon. Our goal is to be able to grow PDRA into one of the best, if not the best series out in racing, to be able to grow that series into different parts of the country and get ourselves in front of new fans, new markets, and really not going to say globalize PDRA, but at the same time, grow it across the country to where we can show what our talents are, what our racers are, and the family atmosphere that we've built over the last 10 years before I was involved and now being involved myself. As far as VMP goes, there is no telling. We will dream some stuff up. But this place is a 500-acre facility. We have a lot of ground here that can be moved into different aspects. We've had a couple of ideas that have entered into our mind to be able to have the doors open more to the public, to bring public into the racetrack that's never been to a race or ever knows what a race is. We're working on some things here to be able to get those people to come to the racetrack during the week, and then kind of see, hey, what do y'all do here on the weekends? And then invite them back, maybe give them a discount ticket through that aspect, through that project, and, see how that grows. I mean, it can grow like wildfire, or we can sit back and go, well, that didn't work.
Right.
But, on both sides, and even for myself, I'll encompass myself into this for all three questions there. The goal every day is just to learn something and get better, and not get in the mindset of, I know everything. I don't need this, or I don't need that shine of detail or anything like that. If we can leave the racetrack, or we can leave the series, or I can leave myself every day and go home and say, hey, I learned something, whether I learned what not to do or what to do. I learned something. And if we can do that, we'll continue to get better and continue to grow for both the racers in this area, for Virginia, for the entire state, even for our tourism department here, and for the PDRA series going nationwide, and being able to put our talents on display all across the country, and to be able to do that in a safe and family environment that everybody feels like they can enjoy and come out and put on a good show for the fans.
Very cool. Thank you for answering that. That's super awesome. And thank you for all the time. Our last segment is Put Up Your Dukes, 13 questions. We got 13 rounds. Answers all limited to 1 minute. You ready to go?
1 minute. I like to rattle on. This is some JT Hudson put TC up to this. I know this.
It could be, but you could also look back. Every person has had to do these 13 questions in their minute.
Yep. We'll have a good time with it.
Yep.
All right, let's go.
Ready?
Yep.
Cool. So, strength of the industry.
Family atmosphere. Making people feel at home, whether that's the kids growing up in a sport in a junior dragster, a dad watching their son or daughter, a mother watching their complete family, anything like that. Encompassing family into the sport is probably one of the strongest details in me. On a scale of 1 to 10, as far as how the sport is, I feel like we're at an 8 or a 9 right now. I think we can always get better. Will never put a number 10 on anything, because there's always room for improvement.
How about biggest weakness?
Entering new people into the sport, 100%.
Biggest opportunity?
Bringing new people into the sport. If we can open those doors, and get those doors open to the right people, to the right groups, into schools, tech schools, whatever it may be, there is a wild opportunity. I know a lot of people look back right now and say, this young generation is not all there. But there are some ideas. There are some very, very talented young people that are doing graphic artistry, that are doing videography, photography, that I see weekly at PDRA, monthly at PDRA, weekly at VMP, that could really take our sport to the next level. And I think that's something that we can really work forward to.
Biggest threat?
Say probably government, fearful of what the future of the sport looks like. The RPM Act program that's been going on for a couple of years. You see the racetracks closing. What does our sport look like when these land shareholders are coming in and buying up things, laws and everything like that. That side of the world, that side scares me for sure.
Most overrated part about being Tyler Crossnoe?
People thinking it's an easy life. People thinking that it's a luxurious, feet kicked up. Hey, you're living the life. It's not as glorious. It's a whole lot of grind. There really is no personal life. That's been the hardest part for me.
Most underrated?
Getting to see the enjoyment from all the people that enjoy your efforts at a racetrack, whether it's a win, a personal best. their kid's first run down a racetrack, their first time at a racetrack, seeing people smile and enjoy their time after you put forth your effort to give them an event or a series or whatever to attempt.
Biggest mental hurdle?
For myself or for the
however you want to answer it.
Mental hurdle, probably two things. Balancing personal life, trying to find a personal life, trying to do right by someone else. That's a hard part of life when you've dove into work so hard. And for me personally, making my dad proud every day.
Yeah. How about last thing? And we'll go. There's three last things, but last things for people younger than you, like the people coming up behind you in the sport. What's the last thing that you have to say for them?
Don't be afraid to reach out. I know I'm a hard person to get in touch with at times, but my phone is always open. My inbox is always open. If you ever have any questions, man, reach out to somebody that's older than you. Have a mentor that you can look up to, that you can hook to. I can't tell you how many that I have, but don't ever give up on your dreams. If it's something you want to chase it. And even if it doesn't work out, you're going to learn something through the fight, through the grind that you're going to take forward in another job or another part of life.
How about for the people older, the people who have gone before you?
Man, I could ruffle some feathers here. No, don't ever judge a book by its cover. I know that's an old school phrase. That's an old school phrase for old school people.
Well, look, I battled that. I mean, look at my cover.
Exactly. And you know, I've said that for numerous years and for numerous reasons. You know, don't judge a person by the way they look. Don't judge a person by their age. Don't judge a person by their color. Don't judge a person by their accent. Nothing like that. Work ethic, love for Jesus, love for life is completely different for everybody, and it's general across the board. We all have the same common goal. Just because we were born in a different generation or we look a different way doesn't mean we don't have the same common goal that everybody else does.
How about for your peers?
Continue to work hard every day. Every day is a battle. At the end of the day, every man, every woman's going to fight a battle and they're going to lose. But in the midst of losing a battle or winning a battle, the most important thing is don't lose yourself.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate your time here today. I know you're one of the busiest men in motorsports, so we thank you for being on the show today and helping us out by learning some people up and teaching some of your greatest lessons and best advice. Sure. Can't speak for your dad. No one can speak for your dad, but can speak for at least my cohort and the people that I work with around here is you certainly make us proud. So we appreciate your work and appreciate what you do.
For sure. Thank you for the time. Thanks for the invite coming on. Had a great time. Look forward to doing it again.
Awesome, man. Well, we look forward to having you again or working together in some way. And we thank you guys for watching and being a part of this whole journey that we have here, which is Drag Illustrated's the racing business with me, Jason Dukes. Produced by JT Murderchunder Hudson. Brought to you by Racers Club always. Yep, that's right. Everybody's got some muscles here. And look, we'll be doing this every week, so we look forward to seeing you back next week. Peace out, guys.